What is up, everybody? Back here again today with a video on Thomas Aquinas. So let's get right into this. I'm going to be starting off to my talks about Thomas by discussing his esse essence or esse essentia distinction. Now, this is not to be confused with the essence energies distinction of Orthodox theology, but this is a radically different and very, very important idea, both in Thomas's thought and the history of philosophy. So let me give you a brief introduction. Basically what this is Thomas is making a distinction between types or accounts of being. And this is all going to make much more sense when you watch this video and the next one. And why this is important is because he is in fact going beyond Aristotle in saying this, and he's making a very big break in this Aristotelian tradition and kind of forging his own path. So thinkers like Etienne Gilson, who is a 20th century Thomist, are really going to think that this esse essence distinction is Thomas's most important contribution to all of philosophy. And in fact, Gilson is going to make the argument, he's going to make a historical argument in his book Being and Some Philosophers, that it is in fact Thomas's metaphysics that we should abide by, because every other thinker leaves out a concept or the component of being known as esse, or the act of existence, whereas Thomas does not. And because we want a full explanation of being, we have to go with Thomas's account of it. I'm not going to talk about that argument here. That's for you to investigate on your own. I think there are some things wrong with it, some things that are good in it, but we'll just bracket that. So with all that in mind, let's really start out by defining some terms here. So first thing you got to know is you got to know what a being is. So a being for Thomas, or an ens, E-N-S, is just a single ontological unit. So this laptop right here, it's an ens in Latin, or a being. Simple. All right, substance, or a substantia. Now, this is a being that subsists or exists as a complete being rather than inhering in or as part of some substantial being. So this, I'm using Eric Pearl's formulation in his book Thinking Being, his definition that he gives here. This is from Thomas. These are Pearl's words, but let me say that one more time. So a substance is a being, like this computer, that subsists or exists as a complete being rather than inhering in or as part of some substantial being. So, what does that mean? This laptop, this computer, is a complete being. It doesn't inhere in anything else. It doesn't subsist in anything else, but it simply is a unit. It's an ens, it's a being, but it's also a substance. Now, what wouldn't be a substance? Well, you see all these colors here? Well, these colors actually inhere in what they color. So that means that they're not substances. If the being inheres in another being, or it has its existence through another being, then it is not a substance. So color is color, height. These things are great examples of accidental properties or accidents in the scholastic and Aristotelian terminology. They are not substances because they need some sort of underlying thing in which they adhere or inhere in. Okay, so that should help clarify some stuff. So we've gone over being or ens, substance or substantia. Now let's talk about essence here. So essence, what the heck is this? This is where it starts to get a little bit tricky. So for Aristotle, essence is simply well, not simply because it's more complicated, but essence is equated with form. Now, since this is about Aquinas, we should mention this because a lot of people tend to confuse Aquinas and Aristotle. In one of my classes, a student said, oh, well, Aquinas is just Aristotle Jr. If you watch my video on interpreting Aquinas, you'll know that I think that that view is insane, literally, because Aquinas is not Aristotle Jr., but a very, very different, fundamentally different thinker. This is just one example of where he's going to differ from Aristotle. So Aquinas is going to define the essence or essentia as the what it is of a being that includes the matter and form as denoting the complete being. So this differs from Aristotle's usage because Aristotle uses the term essence to describe only the form. Aquinas uses the term essence to describe the complete what it is of the being. So an essence is just a what it is to be the thing, what the being is, the whatness. That is the essence. And this can include the matter and the form. So for angels or pure spiritual substances, obviously they don't have matter, so it's just going to be talking about the form. But for us, our essence is going to include the matter and the form. Okay, so let's actually look at chapter 1 of the De Ente and Essentia and see what Aquinas himself says. So if you have it, you can go and you can underline the book. You can get the book online as a PDF, or you can get it a paper copy, or you can get it from the library or something. But in chapter 1, Aquinas says, in composite substances, form and matter is known, but it cannot be said that either of these alone is said to be the essence. For essence is that which is signified by the definition of a thing, but the definition of natural substances contains not only the form but also the matter. It is clear, therefore, that essence includes matter and form. So, you want to go back, pause, listen to that again. Let's reconstruct this argument. So, this is going to have 1, 2, 3 premises and a conclusion. So let's reconstruct it. What is he saying here? This is an argument for essence being both form and matter. So Aquinas is giving an argument for his conception or definition of an essence. So he says, premise 1, we know that the matter and form, we know the matter and form in grasping composite substances. So as I look at the camera, I know the matter and I know the form. Now, we're going to go on here after I give this argument to define matter and form. So just hold on a minute. But I know the matter and form in grasping composite substances. I know the material out of which it's made. I know the form. Okay, premise 2. Essence is signified or is the definition of a thing. Okay, premise 3. The definition of natural substances contains form and matter. Therefore, essence, being the definition of things, contains both form and matter. So let's say this one more time. We know the matter and form in grasping the composite substances. So I know the matter and form when I understand a composite substance. Now, essence is the definition of a thing. And the definition of natural substances contains what we grasp, namely the form and matter. So therefore, we can conclude that essence contains both form and matter. So that's how he gets to his definition of essence. Now, let's talk here as we go into this second half of the video about matter, form, and substantial form. So right now we have defined being or ens. We've defined essence or essentia and substance or substantia. So now matter for Aquinas is just, it's not, you got to keep this really, this is really important, okay? Matter is not, for Aquinas, a bunch of little atoms and molecules. For the ancients and for Aquinas, matter is pure potentiality. Matter is the pure potential to receive a form. Okay, what the hell does that mean? I am not going to discuss that right now. That is a multiple videos on matter and prime matter. We will bracket that aside. It's just important to know that matter for him is pure potentia, or pure potentiality to take on existence. Okay, so form. Form is that in virtue of which a thing is what it is or has some degree of intelligibility here. So form is just that in virtue of what a thing is or has some sort of degree of intelligibility. All right, and then a substantial form. So there's a difference between form and substantial form. A substantial form is a thing's whatness that does not include its matter. Right now, these distinctions don't matter too much. They matter down the road, but just keep in mind that there are a bunch of distinctions going on here, but really my focus is the distinction between essence and esse. And so it's just important to know that matter, form, and substantial form are different things. So let me quote Aquinas here again from the De Ente. And he says here that for by form, which is the act of matter, matter is made of being in act and some this. And later he goes on to say, form gives existence to matter. So, according to Aquinas, form is this actualizing principle of matter. And matter cannot exist without form. They are two really distinct principles, but in material things, they always exist together. So we're going to talk about this later. This is a bit of a foreshadowing. I just wanted to give some definitions, and I want you to kind of set aside his discussion of matter, form, and substantial form, and focus instead on the distinction between essence and existence. And that is what we're going to pick up in the next video. We're going to talk about existence or esse in the next video. But to recap, what we've done is we have discussed essence. We've defined substance, essence, and ends, and then we have also briefly mentioned matter, form, and substantial form, that's a separate topic. And for this video, the main takeaway is that essence is different in Aquinas' usage than in Aristotle's. And for Aquinas, essence simply means the whatness of a thing, the what it is, which can include both its matter and its form. Whereas for Aristotle, essence is just the form. And in the next video, we're going to talk about esse, and we're going to see how esse differs from essence. And with that in mind, stay tuned.